North Korea fired a ballistic missile off its east coast this morning, its second launch in less than a week. This comes as South Korea and the United States prepare to begin their annual joint military drills next Monday. South Korea's job market grew in July, with 108,000 jobs added from a year earlier. But youth employment remained weak, with the unemployment rate among people aged 15 to 29 seeing its biggest increase in 5.5 years. Rescue workers in Colombia are working against the clock to find survivors trapped under rubble after a 7.4 magnitude earthquake struck the western part of the country on Monday. More than 250 people are estimated to have been killed, according to local authorities, and the death toll is expected to rise. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. North Korea has launched a ballistic missile toward the East Sea this morning, making its second launch in less than a week. This comes just days before the start of joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States. Our Park Jun-an starts us off.
Just 6 days after North Korea fired a ballistic missile toward the East Sea, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff announced on Wednesday that it detected another launch at around 6 a.m. from the same coastal region of Wonsan. The Joint Chiefs of Staff announced that the missile flew over 700 kilometers. South Korean and U.S. intelligence officials are currently conducting a precise analysis to determine the projectile's exact specifications. The JCS also stated that South Korea, the United States, and Japan are closely sharing real-time information on the launch. The military immediately heightened its surveillance and preparedness for potential additional launches while maintaining a firm combined defense posture. This latest test was North Korea's 11th ballistic missile launch this year, with the timing of the launch seen as a key factor. It comes just ahead of the annual South Korea-US Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise, set to run from August 17th through 27th. The drill is intended to counter North Korea's evolving nuclear and weapons capabilities. Pyongyang has routinely denounced the joint defense drills as a rehearsal for invasion, using missile launches around the exercise as a show of force and expression of protest. Following the launch, South Korea's Office of National Security convened an emergency security meeting with relevant agencies, including the Defense Ministry and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The office said it reviewed the response and strongly condemned the consecutive launches as a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions and urged North Korea to immediately halt its provocations. Park Jun-an, Arirang News.
South Korea, the United States, Japan, and 37 other countries have issued a warning following China's recent submarine-launched ballistic missile test. In a joint statement released by the U.S. State Department on Tuesday, 40 countries said the recent Pacific missile testing had failed to follow standard advanced notification practices. Beijing last month said it launched a missile carrying a dummy warhead from a strategic nuclear submarine into the Pacific, calling it a routine training exercise. Although the 40 countries did not name China in the statement, they warned that testing nuclear-capable missiles without sufficient notice raises the risk of miscalculation and undermines regional security. They also urged states launching intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched missiles, or space vehicles to provide at least 24 hours notice. And President Lee Jae-myung has been presented with credentials from new U.S. ambassadors to South Korea, Michelle Steele. He met the new American diplomat at the Blue House on Wednesday and had brief talks. Their discussion likely covered this whole Washington alliance, as well as cooperation on U.S. investment and nuclear-powered submarines. President Lee also received diplomatic credentials from the new ambassadors from Portugal, the United Arab Emirates, and Ireland. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy warned of the threat of additional North Korean troops being deployed to support Russia for a second straight day. In a national address on Tuesday, Zelenskyy said Russian President Vladimir Putin believes he can prolong the war by mobilizing more Russian troops and bringing in additional forces from North Korea. Zelenskyy also accused Russia of using North Korean-made missiles in overnight attacks on Ukraine. Ukrainian authorities say 6 civilians were killed in the Zaporizhzhia region in strikes involving North Korean missiles. On Monday, Zelenskyy said Russia had received additional North Korean ballistic missiles and was increasing the deployment of North Korean troops, warning the developments could also pose a security risk to South Korea. Meanwhile, over in Colombia, a massive earthquake has left more than 250 people dead, with the death toll expected to rise as rescue operations continue. Crews are digging through collapsed buildings and twisted debris, racing to find survivors in some of the country's hardest-hit communities. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
Rescue crew in western Colombia are racing to find survivors after a powerful earthquake killed more than 250 people, according to estimates from local authorities. The 7.4 magnitude quake struck early Monday and was the strongest to hit the South American country in decades. It caused widespread destruction across Colombia's coffee-growing region, damaging or flattening apartment buildings, homes, schools, and health centers. In the hardest-hit cities, volunteers and rescue teams worked through the night using cranes, excavators, and even their bare hands to search through piles of concrete and twisted steel.
What we're doing right now is removing debris so we can bring in the dog to search for any survivors. We're waiting for them to bring in the dog and for people to help us.
Families gathered near collapsed buildings waiting for any sign that missing relatives might still be alive. The United Nations Humanitarian Office says 126 deaths had been officially confirmed as of Monday night, with nearly 1,500 people injured. But local authorities on Tuesday estimated the death toll had risen to around 254 as rescue teams reached more damaged communities and communications were gradually restored. Nearly 5,000 homes have been damaged, while dozens of buildings have collapsed and hundreds of residences have been completely destroyed. Power, water, and phone services remain disrupted in several areas, while damage to healthcare facilities is further complicating rescue efforts and aid deliveries, particularly in areas near the epicenter. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Korea recorded its biggest job gain in 4 months, adding more than 100,000 jobs in July. The Ministry of Data and Statistics said Wednesday that the number of employed people reached 29.13 million, up 108,000 from a year earlier. This marked a second straight month of job gains after a downturn in May. However, the employment rate declined for a fourth consecutive month. Among those aged 15 to 29, the rate saw an on-year fall for the 27th straight month. The youth unemployment rate rose 1.3 percentage points to 6.8%, marking the sharpest increase in more than 5 years. And record-breaking heat this summer has hit our dinner tables, disrupting agricultural and seafood supplies. In response, the government has launched emergency measures to mitigate further damage. Our Lee Ji-yeon reports.
Unprecedented temperatures over the past few weeks have significantly increased grocery prices. This has raised alarms over heatflation, which combines the words heat and inflation to signal the impact of severe weather on food costs. Extreme heat waves are warming ocean waters and driving up the cost of seafood. According to the weekly seafood market trends for the 5th week of July, the price of wild flatfish rose about 11% compared to this time last year, while cutlass fish surged roughly 42%. Mackerel saw a staggering 47% increase. To stabilize seafood prices, the government is stepping up its response. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries will host a special promotion offering up to 50% discount on domestic seafood products across major supermarket chains nationwide in August.
By providing about $7 discount per person, we hope to give consumers greater savings during this period.
Beyond seafood, the extreme heat has also caused a sharp increase in price for vegetables. According to retail price data from the Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation, young radish climbed about 86%, while young Napa cabbage surged nearly 87% compared to the previous month. Spinach saw more than a 108% increase. Local merchants selling agricultural products on the ground say they are feeling the impact.
Vegetable prices usually rise in the summer, but when it gets too hot, leafy greens basically just melt away.
Driven by rising agricultural prices, some consumers have turned toward traditional markets, which can be a more affordable options for shoppers. At traditional markets, consumers can save about 40% compared to average retail prices.
Traditional markets are very cheap. Also, they give you generous portions and even throw in some extra produce for free.
Although the extreme heat has settled down since the beginning of this week, summer typhoons remain a concern and climate anxiety persists among the public. To address potential supply disruptions and price volatility, the government plans to closely monitor supply and demand trends for items highly sensitive to extreme heat and heavy rain. While inflation dropped into the 2% range last month, there is still a risk that extreme weather could push up food costs even further. The government pledged to focus all efforts on stabilizing the prices of everyday products. Lee Ju-yeon, Arirang News.
The Eureum orchid, one of South Korea's endangered wild plants, is known to grow in fewer than 10 habitats nationwide. But a new natural habitat has recently been discovered in the country's southern Jeollanam-do province. Our Chae-young tells us more.
This is Boseong-gun County in Jeollanam-do province, a region long famous for its green tea and hemp cloth. Climbing up a steep mountain path, a light brown plant comes into view under the shade between the rocks. It is endangered Eureum orchid. It earned its name because its fruit closely resembles the traditional fruit Eureum.
I was climbing up the mountain when I first saw it. It caught my eye because it looked like Ashila dynasty crown inside a rocky crevice. I took a closer look and found yellow flowers blooming.
The Eureum orchid found in Boseong-gun County has a total of 14 shoots. The orchid typically grows in areas with decomposing leaf litter, surviving through a unique ecological process where its underground roots absorb nutrients by attaching to mushroom mycelium. With fewer than 10 habitats known nationwide, the Eureum orchid is designated as a Class II endangered species by the Ministry of the Environment.
The most crucial step is to preserve the local environment of this existing habitat. From there, we need to analyze similar environmental conditions to find suitable areas and then establish a system for propagation to help the species thrive.
As this habitat holds significant phytogeographical value, the forest authorities plan to implement measures to preserve the genetic resources of the Eureum orchid. Chae-young, Arirang News.
What's the secret to living past 100? 3 Brazilian sisters may hold the answer. Newly certified as the world's oldest living trio of siblings by Guinness World Records, they're now at the center of a major scientific study. Our Kim So-young reports.
They grew up swimming in rivers, eating food straight from the garden, and living simply. And somehow, that was enough to carry them well past a century. These 3 ladies, aged 109, 104, and 103, have just made history. Guinness World Record officially named them the oldest living trio of siblings on the planet, with a combined age of 316 years. But beyond the record, scientists believe these 3 women could hold biological clues to one of the humanity's oldest questions. Why do some people age so much better than others?
From DNA testing, we look for protective genes, and we know there are several, not just one. The more families we have with multiple centenarians, the greater precision of our research.
The DNA Long Habu project at the University of São Paulo is now studying the sisters, comparing long-lived individuals against those who develop frailty or cognitive decline. hoping to pinpoint exactly what makes some people age so differently. But the sisters themselves have a much simpler explanation.
The secret starts from birth. Nutrition is everything. My mother made sure we ate well, with fresh vegetables and greens she grew and prepared at home herself.
For the youngest, age 103, the memories of a childhood spent outdoors are just as vivid.
We swam, fished, and went crabbing. Everything was fresh and healthy. And that is why we are still here today.
The sisters otherwise led ordinary lives, raising children, working as a nurse, a craftswoman, and at a television network, respectively. And as for regrets,
I had a good childhood and adolescence. Even today, life is good and I cannot complain.
the team is pushing to enroll 500 centenarians. And with 3 sisters like these, they may be closer than ever to cracking the code. But for these 3 ladies, there's no mystery to solve. They simply lived and lived well. Kim Seo-young, Arirang News.
This is the world now. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, more than 2,000 people have now died of Ebola. Officials said it is the fastest spreading outbreak ever recorded. The country's Public Health Institute reported on Tuesday that the death toll had reached 2,011. It has doubled from 1,000 deaths in less than a month. An outbreak in 2018 took more than a year to reach the same number of deaths. This strain, called Bundibugyo, has no approved vaccine and no approved treatment. Late detection, conflict, and overstretched hospitals have helped it spread. The World Health Organization calls it a global health emergency. In the United States, The Washington Post reported on Monday that President Donald Trump was moved off Air Force One in a catering truck last month and switched to a different plane over an Iranian threat to kill him. Trump boarded Air Force One in front of cameras in Ankara after the NATO summit. But moments later, he left it by catering truck and got on a smaller Air Force jet. Reporters and some White House staff still thought he was on board and were told to keep the window shades down. When later asked why, Trump said they were probably on a dangerous flight. Both planes landed in Britain minutes apart. The White House would not confirm the switch, saying only that many enemies have their sights on the president. In Russia, a former U.S. Marine has been released after more than 4 years in prison. President Trump said on Tuesday that Moscow had freed 32-year-old Robert Gilman for humanitarian reasons after talks with President Vladimir Putin. Gilman had been in prison since 2022. Trump said, quote, Russia asked for nobody in return and that no exchange took place. In Portugal, Cristiano Ronaldo has married his longtime partner Georgina Rodriguez. The couple posted a photo of their rings on social media. They wed at a civil ceremony in a coastal town in western Portugal near the capital Lisbon. The couple has been in a relationship since 2016, having met in Madrid, where Ronaldo was a player. The 41-year-old has scored nearly 1,000 goals in his career and recently played in his 6th World Cup. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
The tropical nights have disappeared and most heat wave alerts have been lifted. After weeks of rough summer weather, the morning air now feels much more refreshing. Since the humidity has settled down, the feels-like temperatures are pretty much similar to what the readings indicate as well. But it is kind of abnormal to have these pleasant conditions even before Liberation Day. But summer is not over just yet. Meanwhile, Typhoon Chanho system is moving toward the East Sea, sending strong easterly winds and moisture toward Korea. Much of the East Coast will see rain through Friday along with strong winds, so those having a summer vacation near the water need to stay alert. And this afternoon, Seoul and Gwangju will be getting up to 32 degrees Celsius. Daegu and Busan will make it to 31 degrees under sunnier skies expected this afternoon. Indian regions will have passing showers at the end of the week, while the afternoon heat stays with us.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.